Each badger marks the track with its own scent.
His black legs are short but very powerful for digging. The name badger probably comes from the French word bêcher, meaning digger.
Hello, Cricket Badger podders around the world. Very good to see you. As you can see on the screen, I'm joined by an assortment of my fan badges. Very good to see all three of them. We'll get into them in just a second. Thank you very much, though, first and foremost, to seatfrog.com for their sponsorship of the Cricket Badger podcast. More on them later, but if you want to get cheap tickets, get upgraded to first class, they're the place to go. I know Mark Hilton travels and gads around the country on the train. So seatfrog.com, Mark, that's where you need to be. Anyway, welcome back, gents. Anand, Neil and Mark with me. We're going to be talking about England's test matches that are coming up over the next 12 months. I've entitled this podcast, The Next 12 Months Will Decide Whether BazBall Works. Because basically, gents, everything is judged on the Ashes down under. And basically that's where the jobs are lost and that's where legends are made. So rightly or wrongly, that is on the horizon. First and foremost, though, let's get into the news of today, because very sadly for me, because he's one of my favourites, Rohit Sharma retires from Test cricket. I've really enjoyed watching him play. He's going to carry on playing, obviously, in white ball, but for me, he is a gentleman. He is a class act. He is cool and calm when he's at the helm of teams, Mumbai Indians, mine and Anand's team. He's led them with distinction over the years as well. Let's start with you, Anand. Rohit, he probably won't go down as a great, but he is to me. He's maybe Test cricket isn't his format, but he's played plenty of tests for India. They're going to need a new captain as well, aren't they?
Definitely. I think he's a Indian great for sure, and he's going to go down as a very good player to me. When you look at this test record, he, for what, more than half of his career, he was coming in at 4, 5, 6. And then from 2019, he started to become an opener. And when you actually take a look at the record there, from 2019 to 2023, there was only one other player who could match up to Rohit, right? And that was Usman Khwaja. Basically, Rohit and Usman Khwaja were both averaging 50-ish, and nobody else was getting close to them. And we're talking about an era where everybody has good new ball attacks. There's no team that doesn't have 3 or 4 great pacers now. So I think he's going to go down, at least in Indian realm, as the second best opener after SMG, which is the great Sunny.
Neil shaking his head. Come on, Neil.
Sehwag.
Great point. So now Sehwag in Sena countries averaged 34. Rohit 41. It's not close. I love Sehwag. Now I think Sehwag is one of the most important test cricketers in Indian history. However, in overseas condition, Rohit easily better.
Yeah, I mean, I echo what Anand said about splitting Rohit's test career into 2 sections, because I mean he was supposed to debut in possibly 2011, and then he stood on a ball in the warm-up, sort of like Glenn McGrath did in 2005, and did his ankle, and then I think he debuted in Sachin's farewell series versus the West Indies and scored centuries in both tests. But he was in and out. He was batting 5-6, in and out of the team for a long time with varying returns. But when he got pushed up to open, he became, in my eyes, probably the best test opener in the world over a good 4, maybe possibly 5-year period. That series where India came to England and we were 2-1 up before the Old Trafford test got cancelled, he was absolutely imperious. I mean, I've got a theory as to what happened with because his test drop off was pretty quick. He was still doing very well up until the Bangladesh series, and then he had New Zealand at home, which we lost, and Australia away. But before that, he was still performing well. And I think he had the same issue that Johnny Bairstow did when Johnny became very, very good at white ball, because Rohit went from being a very traditional white ball opener to becoming hyper aggressive. And I don't think he could switch between the two. So the technical flaws which white ball cricket does not, um, you're able to hide, and white ball cricket allows you to um, play with such loose abandon. You can't do that in Test cricket, and I think that's where the drop off came. So an all-time great opener for India, a very good player overall, probably didn't reach the heights over a prolonged period that his talent demanded, because there was never any doubt about how talented he was. He was wonderful to watch in all formats. And I don't know whether we'll miss him, whether it's just the natural thing, changing of the guard, but I will miss watching him in red ball cricket, because he was just beautiful to watch.
You mentioned Johnny Bairstow there. I think Josh Butler was similar. There was one period in Josh Butler's Test career where he actually looked like he was getting it, and it was the period where they weren't playing white ball cricket. As soon as he got back into the white ball mode, the Test cricket died again. Mark, I know you're very forthright on our WhatsApp group, and you were starting to say that they're not going to miss him. Rohit Sharma only averages 40 in Test cricket. Blah 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 blah. Go on, put your money where your mouth is. Tell us why. Oh, he's pretending to be frozen
now because I'm frozen. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, go on, carry on.
What I was going to say, I don't think they're going to miss him now, because I think, as Neil pointed out a little bit, he's falling off the radar in Test cricket over the last couple of years. I think white ball cricket suits him more generally. I did think he had a great period, particularly when he played that series in England.
Your audio is awful. Sorry, Mike. Your audio is dreadful. I'm gonna have to move on from you unless you can fix it. I mean, basically, the general consensus is Rohit Sharma, a tremendous player, and India will miss him. But there's no doubt that India will miss him. And obviously, there's the only thing is Anand and Neil, whoever wants to come in first. India have got so many. We talk in our WhatsApp group, and Mark says, "Well, it's a period of transition." Kind of who's going to come in to replace them? There are so many in the queue. You only have to watch a bit of the IPL to see how many youngsters there are queuing up for India. Desperate to
he's
get
only 14, James. We can't put him in the Test team for England.
Well, why not?
Well, he did take down the Aussie under-19s last year. But no, you're right. There is incredible strength and depth that we can see in the white ball side. There is a question, especially for Sena, whether there is that same strength and depth that can translate to foreign conditions. I know that a lot of players, a lot more players now than previously, are coming across to England and doing county stints. So I'm not immediately worried. In fact, I'm more worried about the middle order at the moment, because the obvious thing to do, in my eyes, would be to move KRL up to open, because he was so good along with Rohit on the last tour. And I think I'd also...
I've had to mute Mark.
You're going to come on something. You're going to come on to the question anyway, so I'll say it. I know Jasperit's vice captain, but he's not going to be able to play all 5 tests of the 5-test series, so I'd make KL captain.
Well, KL Anand has got a bit of a track record, hasn't he? When he's stood up before, I mean, he was the captain when India did so well with the B team in Australia, that fantastic series. So it's not really a step down, is it? KL's a pretty safe pair of hands to pass it to, even if it's just temporarily.
Not really a step down, and I also think that KL is the new Rohit Sharma, isn't he? Because KL, if you look at the way he plays, look at the conditions he's played, look at the shots that he has, the technique he has, ostensibly should be able to master a lot of these conditions. KL right now is about the same age Rohit was when he became a steady opener. I think KL needs to be made the opener with Jaiswal. You know, Jaiswal's not going anywhere. Make KL the opener, see whether he can take the jump. Because KL has looked fantastic for periods of times. He looked great in the Australia series. After the third test, though, I think there was a steep fall off. So those are things that, could work in his favor because now KL is not going to get moved around. There's no Rohit.
Well, there we go. We've solved that problem. KL Rahul is the recommendation of the Cricket Badger podcast to be the next India captain. Let's move on to the next topic I've got on my sheet here, which is basically the title of this podcast. Is this the period where we judge England? I mean, they've remarkably somehow, however they sort it out, have risen to second in the Test rankings and the ICC Test rankings. But to me, there are still many questions about this England side. They've started to kind of say a few more grown-up things about how they're going to play Test cricket. And they have said that they are kind of learning from maybe some of the mistakes they've made. But obviously, Zimbabwe coming up, that's the first test to hit the ground running. I don't think that's a formality. Zimbabwe aren't no mugs, and depending on the track, it's going to be interesting. Then India, for a 5-test series in England. India are always a tough opposition. And then obviously the Ashes to follow in the winter, where, as I said before, legends are made or people face the axe if it goes horribly wrong. Let's try Mark to see if he's actually working here. Do you think, Mark, that this is kind of D-Day? This is where England will be judged. This is where the likes of Brendan McCullum, etc., will... Oh, dear. I can't use you, Mark. Your audio's awful. Sorry. I've come to you, Neil or Anand. Is this where England are going to be judged in terms of whether BazBall works or not?
In England, it will. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was actually going to make the same point. I think in England, you're going to get judged, but talk about a team going through transition. India's going through it. England's doing the same, aren't they? I mean, if you look back to the last time India was in England, and I looked at the team there, we had Hamid, Sibley, Burns, who else? Bairstow, right? We're looking at a very different team with Battle, Brook, Root. And Root cannot be the only person who carries the flag. I know that Brook has done remarkably well as well. So this should be an interesting time period, but I don't think that it should be those two series that changes how England look. I think Baz has done remarkably well.
And one of the differences as well is Ben Duckett has actually made a real fist of being an opener. He's ultra aggressive. He doesn't leave much, but it often comes off. And when it comes off, he gets England off to a very, very strong start, Rohit style. I mean, Rohit has done that for India, hasn't he? In a slightly different way. But how do you see this England? I mean, is it still a work in progress? Is this still an England that kind of all that talk about BazBall, rah, 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 let's go out and be aggressive? Or are they growing up a little bit?
For me, at least, it's about the bowling, isn't it? Because if you think about tests, bowling attacks win it. How good Cars? Who do we have? Kang might come back in, Potts, and I'm missing Atkinson, right? So are those four folks going to be able to keep up to what Broad, Anderson, Vokes did? And Vokes is still around, so.
Yeah, Vokes is injured at the moment, isn't he? So he won't be featuring certainly in the Zimbabwe test. But the bowlers that England have picked for that Zimbabwe test, Sam Cook has come into the squad. He fully deserves his call-up. I had Jamie Porter on the podcast a few weeks ago, and he said of his county colleague, yeah, definitely got a future for England. A little bit quicker than maybe some people give him credit for. And obviously his record in the county game is very impressive. You got Gus Atkinson, Matthew Potts and Josh Tong making up the pace bowlers alongside obviously Ben Stokes as well, with Shoaib Bashir as the spinner. Now, Shoaib has had some glory moments in Test cricket. He's taken wickets, and at times he's looked like he could be the future. But then there are times where he looks distinctly ordinary, and he's gone back to county championship cricket at the start of this season and has not really turned up any trees, Neil. India won't be quaking in their boots with Shoaib Bashir in the England side, will they?
Shoaib, he's just got a lot of work to do. I don't want to have a huge go at him because the guy's played 20 first-class games, if that,
Yeah.
and the majority of those will be tests now. I think he's one of those who's capable of bowling a golden ball, but there's probably going to be a hit me ball every over, and away from helpful pitches, I think that he'd just be milked. Someone like Pujara would just take him for 3-4 runs and over all day long without any fear that he was gonna get out. I don't think he can provide that pressure from drying up one end. I think he's he's clearly got something, but he hasn't had any chance to develop it. And I think Rob Key and Ben Stokes got high off their own supply. They just they were all about doing things so completely differently that they didn't stop to think, why are we doing things this way? And then, doing it differently to address an issue with the current process. They just, Shoaib was a pick to be different, to make a headline. And he's done it well occasionally. But in Pakistan, when they produced, day 8's raggers, he didn't do well.
No.
He was getting smashed by their bowlers, by Sajid and Noman at the end, because he's just not ready. Like Graham Swan came into the international team at something like 2021, and then got dropped and went away for about 8 years, and learnt his craft and came back. It doesn't have to be about finding that prodigy who's ready to go at 20 years old. Players should be given the time to develop. And
The thing is, Neil, we've got two players in the England sides. Zach Crawley, who is considerably further along his Test match appearance route, but still has a lot of questions alongside his name. And it's the reason that Test cricket has been played for 150 years in the way it's been played is because that's how it's played and that's how it works. And that's, you give people, you wait until somebody is ready for Test cricket, you put them into Test cricket to see if they can sink or swim. If they swim, then maybe they've got a career. But throwing some, I mean, you joked about the 14-year-old young Indian lad. There's no way you'd throw him in now because his technique is all wrong for first-class cricket. I saw there was a really good little piece on one of the Indian TV stations where somebody was showing how he holds the bat. Now he stands there almost like baseball and just basically whacks it. And he's got a great eye for the ball, a big middle, and it often works. But you stick him into a Test arena, he will be found out because he hasn't got the technique to play a long Test innings. Zach Crawley averaged, 28 or 29 or something like that for Kent in first-class cricket. They picked him. He's had a couple of good knocks on flat tracks where he was able to bully and attack, and he's obviously got some degree of talent. But George DeBell often says on the Ask George thing on the cricketer, there are plenty of openers in Test cricket. If you gave in Championship cricket, if you gave them the same opportunities that you've given Zach Crawley, they will hit some centuries along the way because they're all good enough to do that at some stage. They might still average 25, 29 or something like overall, but they'll have a day where they do a Zach Crawley and come good. It's unfair, isn't it, to take somebody who's obviously got some talent, they obviously see something in them, and he's one for the future. But isn't it unfair to kind of give them that apprenticeship for 5 years in front of the glare of 32 Sky cameras with all the slow-mos and with all of the social media and all the chat that goes with that? You've got to have a skin like a rhinoceros to actually kind of be able to survive that.
I would take the two separately because Shoaib is a guy who got brought in off absolutely nothing, and it was just a case of, well, we'll see. And I think to his detriment, he's been continually both backed and talked up as being a world-class spinner, while at the same time saying, well, we can't judge him as we would judge Test players because he's only played a couple of games. No,
Right.
Zach Crawley's got a history behind him, and they backed him to the tune of 60 plus tests. Isn't he something like 8th most capped opener for England? It's something absolutely ridiculous. And yeah, we've seen him play some tremendous innings, but I you look at those, and then there's about 10 innings in between them where he's done nothing, and then he rolls out a 150,
Mm.
and then does nothing for another 10 innings. In fact, his partner is possibly a case study in how things should go. He came into the England side as a young lad in 2016.
And he had a tough baptism because he was in the subcontinent on turning tracks and everybody was failing. It wasn't just Ben Duckett failing.
Oh, yeah. I think he scored a 50 in Bangladesh on an absolute ragger. But then he had to face Ravi Ashwin, probably the best bowler to left-handers ever, and he got found out. And then he's had to go away. He's had to work at his game, and they look like completely different people. The player that you see in Ben Duckett today to the young lad that he was back then, and he's earned his way back. And I would now say that he is the senior partner, opening up for England,
By some distance, I would suggest.
Yeah, and he's doing it across formats. And as aggressive as he is, he famously leaves something like 2% of balls that he faces. Statistics may not be true, but he doesn't feel reckless in the way that Zach Crawley does. There seems to be a assuredness with him when he's playing.
The difference is, Neil, he understands his game and he knows what shots he can play. He knows, if it's a full pitch ball, I'm going to drive it through extra cover or mid off. If it's a short ball, I've got the cut and I've got the pull. That's what he plays. Whereas Zach Crawley, he's got the cover drive, but he kind of executes maybe 1 in 3 and the other 2 go to slip. And that's not really what an opener is supposed to do in Test cricket. That he almost, I think, it didn't do Zach Crawley any favours that he hit that first ball of the Ashes series for 4 through the covers, because it almost gave him even more of a G up to say, right, hit everything that comes down to you because you're amazing. He's averaging 30 or whatever, 30 and a half or whatever it is in Test cricket. 57.
And that's despite a 250 versus Pakistan, how much was it? 160, 170 against Australia in Old Trafford.
There's 4 Test centuries in there and a couple of big ones, aren't there? So, you can't say that's despite that.
But they were 4 Test centuries.
Yeah, but they were flat tracks.
4 Test centuries in 60 tests.
No, it's 50. Where is he? 53 tests he's played.
All right. Well, yeah. Wow, I didn't realise it was that bad.
And you look at his county championship stuff. He's getting in the first innings, which is where openers are probably more judged than the second innings. He's getting rolled over by, with all due respect, sort of county trundlers. Yeah.
Div 2. How many centuries had Gary Balance scored before he got dumped unceremoniously? About 10.
I'll tell you in a sec.
It felt
Gary Balance, by the way, he's going to be in the coaching staff for the Zimbabweans when they come over. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Test cricket, Gary Balance, 24 Test matches, made 500, so he made 1 more than Zach Crawley
in
half the amount. Yeah, in less than half.
And he got dumped when there was a critical weakness in his defence because he was basically standing on the stumps.
We say often that there's been a number of players that have come into the England side. I'm a big fan of Adam Lyth, who had scored a century against New Zealand at Headingley. Then he had a tough Ashes series against a good bowling attack and never really had another chance. If he'd been shown the same kind of patience and given the same kind of support and love that Zach Crawley's been given, I guarantee you'd have scored more runs than Zach Crawley has done because he's a very, very good player. There's a few like that. But Zach Crawley and Shoaib, I feel a bit sorry for Zach Crawley. I think that I saw an interview with Zach Crawley a couple of years ago where he actually said, "I'm surprised I didn't get dropped." Because he was actually thinking, well, "I'm not scoring any runs here. The axe is going to fall," but they just kept faith in him. Anand, in India, do they pick people off the back of IPL for Test cricket, or are they looking at first class runs? How do they do it? Because England seem to have just kind of turn their back on the county championship as a litmus test for how good somebody is.
Well, we're going to find out pretty soon, aren't we? Because Sai Sudarshan is a name that's making the rounds. Now, Sai Sudarshan averages 40 in Ranji Trophy. He hasn't played a ton, but he only averages 40. When you compare that with somebody like a Karun Nair, it's not even a fair comparison there. To me, India, there's that suggestion that India picks from IPL, but I don't feel that that's the case. If you think about all the openers that we've had, like even Jaiswal, for example, Jaiswal did very well in Ranji before he got picked in there. We have Abhimanyu Ishwaran, who's the reserve opener in there. Again, he is really scored a bunch of runs in Ranji. He doesn't play IPL. So I think there's maybe case for a couple of people like maybe Nitish.
Wasn't Jaiswal, he made his name with a big triple hundred or something for one of the Mumbai teams, didn't he, in a long form game rather than a one day game? He had the kind of background of being able to play long innings.
Yeah, he definitely has. And I mean, that's the one thing I was thinking, when you're talking about Zach Crawley, I was looking at his first class stats. He doesn't score centuries even in first class cricket. I don't know that he knows how to build a long inning, right? When you have to make good on some of these innings, when the first and second change bowlers are done, now you got to make hay. You got to play around, maybe milk a single rather than going for the glorious cover drive. And that's a question that I have with Zach Crawley because he looks fantastic when he goes. It's sort of similar in some ways to Markram, although I think Markram's more talented. But I can't figure out why Markram's not making, not averaging 50 either, because he looks $1 million when he plays. And that's the question with Zach Crawley.
I'll tell you what, Anand, I think the presence of Zach Crawley and a few other players in the top three for England gives even more credence to Joe Root being the best England batter of all time, because he's been in as an opener on so many occasions, 12 for 2 or something, and he's walking out there with his pads on. Oh, it still looked too big for him, but he is so vital for England. The amount of times that a century by Root has covered up a lot of other problems that England have got in that batting lineup, and there's very few times that he's failed. A couple in Australia, but even in Australia, his average isn't that bad. So huge amount on his shoulders, and then Harry Brook coming in a spot behind him. But that top order, Ben Duckett aside, still looks a little bit fragile to me. And let's move on to the Zimbabwe test coming up. 4-day test, Trent Bridge, starts on the 22nd of May. England have picked their squads. Don't think there's too many surprises in it. Jordan Cox has been brought in, but he was already in there thinking because he had to go home.
Has he injured himself? I was watching TalkSport.
Not again.
Somerset Essex. I think he had to go off. I don't know if they were just saying it didn't look good, but I don't know. I don't think it's official.
Okay, well, I wasn't aware of that because he bless him, was supposed to be keeping in New Zealand, wasn't he? And then got an injury on the eve of that tour. So if he's had another one, that would be hard to take for him, I guess, because I know he was disappointed with that, obviously. But he's come in, and they've also brought in Jamie Porter's mate Sam Cook, who is, as I say, got some tremendous stats behind him in the county game. But apart from that, no surprises with England's selections. But they can't afford to take Zimbabwe lightly, can they? Zimbabwe are a team on the up. I mean, I've noticed them more in one-day cricket than I have in the test arena, because they hardly play a test, do they, Zimbabwe? But they're
playing 11 this year, I think.
Well, I mean, that's great. That's really good, because they don't play enough. But they're a team with players who are starting to look the part, and England can't take them lightly.
They are a very dangerous side, especially the bowling attack. That bowling attack, if England turn out a green seamer, will cause havoc. They've got a great seam bowling lineup, sort of headed up by Blessing Muzarambani and Richard Ungarava, who are both absolutely superb, and also massive. Blessing would be first choice for England at 6'7" or something. Yeah, that release point is crazy. And I think I saw the squad. Their issue has always been their batting, because there is an extreme reliance on Sean Williams, Craig Irvine, and Skander Raza. I believe all three are in the squad for England. But a couple of the newer players have been doing well. Ben Curran has got a test century now opening up. And I think Brian Bennett has looked quite good as well. I expect England to win, but if they take Zimbabwe, if they try to take the piss with the bowling, then it could be very much like the that test against Ireland at Lords, where they were all out for about 100, weren't they, against Tim Myrtle?
Yeah. You'd have got a good odds on England playing a test match at the start of the summer of 2025. One Curran's going to be playing, and it's going to be Ben, because obviously he was the kind of the also ran really in the way the outside world saw the Curran family, but he's obviously gone to Zimbabwe and getting a lot of international cricket. Now, as a 28-year-old former Northants opener, as you mentioned, Craig Irvine, the captain. I'll go through it. I'm probably going to pronounce some of these names wrong. Clive Madande is the wicketkeeper batter. You got Tavadzwa Siga, the wicketkeeper batter. Nick Welch is in there as an opening bat. Brian Bennett, you mentioned, the all-rounder. Wesley Matavere is the all-rounder. Sikander Raza is there as a batting all-rounder. Sean Williams in there as well. Trevor Gwandu, Wellington Masakadza, Blessing Muzarabani, and you've got Richard Nagarava, Newman Nyamburi is a 19-year-old, and Victor Nyochi. So that's the Zimbabwe squad. I've probably butchered a few of those, but I apologise if you're watching any of the Zimbabwe team. But they are a team, as you say, who are on the up and Anand. I've got a bit of an affinity to Zimbabwe. I'd like to see them do well, and I'd like to see all of the smaller nations, look like they belong on that stage, and they've got a chance, haven't they, at Trent Bridge to show what they can do a little bit.
They definitely have a chance, and it's going to depend on the pitches, right? If the pitches are a green seamer, then I think they definitely have a big chance. But if it's a flat pitch, I think England should be fine, right? England definitely has the firepower to actually go and put up 500 runs in 80 overs. And put them.
We're having trouble with. Sorry, Anna. We're having trouble with sound because you're breaking up a little bit on me now. So we'll look forward to that with interest. 4-day test, obviously, as they give Ireland for one of the smaller nations, as in inverted commas, but going to be really interesting between the 22nd and 25th.
Shoaib Bashir is the most experienced bowler in the England squad.
Although he's not, is he? He's at test level, but in terms of overall first class appearances, he's probably miles behind everybody else. I mean, it's going to be interesting because Trent Bridge, I mean, it's usually a really good batting track, isn't it, Trent Bridge? So if they serve out one of those, but
I don't know. I mean, it's also where Stuart Broad ripped through Australia, and they're all out for 60. I think it's a weird shape, which I think lends itself to high scoring in white ball cricket. But the test I've seen there have either been really flat. There was one that India played against England in 2013 where Jimmy scored like 80 odd, which was dead. But then we've seen some really sporting pitches there as well. So I'll be interested to see what they do, because I don't think with that bowling attack they want to make it too flat, because they want 20 wickets there. So I think they would line themselves up against the Zimbabwe batting attack and say we can handle it better than Zimbabwe can.
Let's take a very quick break, gents. Meant to do this about 10 minutes ago. Seatfrog.com have come on board as a sponsor of the Cricket Badger podcast. Here's their advert, and I'll tell you all about them off the back of this.
We all want a bit of that first class lifestyle, right? Well, with Seafrog, you can travel first class on trains for a lot less.
We're talking up to 60% off first class tickets using our upgrade options.
Think eBay, but for train tickets.
Win your upgrade and you can enjoy food, drink, and a whole lot of legroom. Forgot the alcohol.
It's beyond simple to sign up and start bidding. Just download Seafrog and upgrade your ticket today.
There you go, Seatfrog, the sponsor of the Cricket Badger podcast. Seatfrog is the app that helps you upgrade your standard class tickets to first class for up to 60% off, so you can enjoy complimentary food and drink, free Wi-Fi, and a lot more legroom for considerably less money. Use the code CricketFrog when you use the app, and you get a one-time only first booking offer of £5 off, but you save money anyway, so you might as well get Seatfrog on your phone, on your app, and use that to book your tickets and upgrade to first class. Neil will be doing that, won't you, Neil?
Yeah. I mean, I remember traveling
You're
first
supposed
class.
to say yes. I'll be disappointed if you said no.
Upgrade first class. You get some free sandwiches, a couple of cans of beer. Makes the journey much better.
So thank you to Seatfrog and Anand. I think you've done some jiggery pokery with your technology, and I think you're back with us as well.
Hopefully, it works better this time.
That's better. Yes. You're not all crackly and fuzzy, which you were a few minutes ago. Anyway, looking forward to the Zimbabwe test. Let's cast our eyes a little bit further forward. India coming over, obviously, for a 5-test match series without Rohit. But plenty of quality in the whatever squad they pick. They're going to bring some very, very fine players. This is going to be, we talk about Zimbabwe as being somebody you can't take for granted. Well, you certainly can't take India for granted. I know if Mark had been on now, he's predicted 3-1 and thinks that they should serve up some green tops, because that would obviously then give the England seamers the advantage. But when you look at the Indian bowling attack, which has got better and better over the last 10 years, with the likes of Jasprit Bumrah and Mohammad Shami, if they're fit, you give them some green tops on the first morning, it could be carnage. So going to be interesting, Neil, to see what kind of surfaces they do serve up, because I don't think there's any surface that gives England a massive advantage.
No. You wonder if they're going to make them very flat, but then they know that India have got the batters who can also go very big and have the patience to stay out there for a long time.
I mean, Jaiswal, just to jump in there, Jaiswal, who we all rate hugely, and he's great to watch. He is somebody that in the IPL smacks it around and does all the funky stuff, but he's shown that he's got the temperament to, go on and get a really, really big century. You can't give people like him a second opportunity.
Well, what you were saying before, the perception that the BCCI picked the team based on IPL performances, I think that is mainly in places like England and Australia, where the only time they watch India play outside of their own shores is they watch the IPL. So they don't pay attention to Ranji Trophy. They don't pay attention to the A Tours, because here Lions Tour has started to become slightly more important, but for a long time it hasn't had any importance at all. In India, there is a very, very strict hierarchy. If you do well enough over a long period of time in Ranji, you get called up to the A team. If you perform on A tours, then you are in line for a test call up if a position opens up. So people, let's take the last England tour of India, Sarfraz. All you hear from the commentators was averaging 60 in Ranji Trophy, because all they'd done was they'd looked up his Cricinfo stats, taking 5 seconds to look at it and go, oh wow, he's got a massive first-class average. The reason that other players had got into the India team ahead of Sarfraz was because they had performed really well on the A tours, whereas Sarfraz had middling returns up until the A tour right before the England series, and then he came in and very good. there is a huge amount. It's almost the polar opposite to the Rob Key method of just disregarding county.
Whilst you're talking there, Neil, I was looking back because I can remember it's 2010 as it turned out, but I can remember sitting at Headingley watching a Yorkshire 11, which obviously featured a few second teamers at the time, taking on an India A side who made 473 for 3 at Headingley in 95 overs. 91 for Mukund, Shikhar Dhawan, 179, 118 for Ajinkya Rahane, 55 for Cheteshwar Pujara, who was the captain. Manish Pandey, 11 not out at the end there. Plenty of names that have gone on to be India players with distinction, not just getting the odd appearance, but proper players for India. And that just kind of backs up what you said. That's been going on for some time, isn't it?
Yeah, but especially when Dravid was in charge of the under-19s and the A team, that with him and with Shastri in charge of the main team, they made sure there was a proper pathway. So there is a history in India of cronyism. You only get picked if you went to a selector's played for a selector's former states. It was only players who played in Delhi or Mumbai or Chennai who were getting played. It's become a lot more democratic now, and it's more of a meritocracy. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what the squad is. If I'll look forward to see who comes in at number 5, because I think that's going to be the open spot if KRL moves to open. I think Sai Sudarshan has got a good chance, and he had a summer with Yorkshire. I think the other person.
I think it was Notts, wasn't it? He was Notts, wasn't he?
North Carolina.
Did I say Yorkshire? I meant Surrey. I
thought
it might have been Surrey. It might have been Notts. I could have got these completely wrong. I think the other person who's shown real improvement, and I caveat this with it being in white ball cricket, so I'm kind of going against my own grain, but I don't have his Ranji numbers. Shreyas Iyer had a weakness against the short ball, which was really remarked upon, and but the way that he's come back, having seen him face the short ball in white ball cricket, and what people have been saying about how he's gone away and worked on it, I think there's a possibility of him coming back in at 5. So I'll be interested to see that. The big thing for India, though, is which of the bowling attacks is going to be fit. Because if we have both Shami and Bumrah fit, I put us as favourites. But I'd put England as favourites if even one of them is injured.
And if you're picking the side, I mean, I can't see them picking Jasprit for all 5 tests. They're going to probably pick and choose a little bit what surfaces best suit him, best suit Shami, etc. That's going to be interesting to see how they cope with that. For people that don't follow India closely, who is behind Shami and Jasprit Bumrah in that test side?
So I think Prasidh Krishna did himself a lot of good in the last test in Australia. He showed that he has sort of developed. Now he's 28 years old, so he's not a 22-year-old buck, right? But he might have figured out where to bowl, because one of his biggest issues was he was sort of scattergun. He would place the ball everywhere, right? So I think Prasidh Krishna might have a good chance, and I think there is a little bit of a shadow on Shami. Now I always take him on any tour, because to me he's in the top 5 pace bowlers India's ever produced. But Shami has looked a little undercooked right now. Now, it's been a few months since he recovered from the injury, but you still see him not up to his best. In this IPL, we have not seen that. Hopefully, he continues to get better.
I was just going to say, and they are my team, but we've been in absolute shambles this year. So I think how he's looked has probably been down to us being pretty damn dreadful.
The other thing is he's in Test cricket he's a line of length kind of bowler, isn't he?
He is in white ball as well.
But that doesn't always give you the best chance in white ball cricket, because people know where you're going to pitch it.
No, but was it the 2023 IPL where he was absolutely unhittable? I think he was with the Gujarat Titans, and I think he got a bucket load of wickets. And he was buzzing the ball in. It was a 145. Pace was up. Everything was up. But I mean, he got injured, and things have sort of changed. Again, he's also, I think, 34 or 35. So that's, when you're thinking about a fast bowler, a pace bowler, that certainly, that age starts to, there's going to be some differences in his performances, unless your name is James Anderson.
Yeah. Who else is there then that's behind that might come through that we might see?
Harshit Rana was on the last tour, and he again can be a little scattergun, but has shown a lot of promise. The one person who I'm curious whether India would take a punt on is Arshdeep. Arshdeep can actually swing the ball. Arshdeep does have the problem where he doesn't play a lot of red ball cricket. He's primarily been a white ball seamer. Even in Ranji, I think his last game might have been in October or September or something like that. He has not played a ton.
He did a stint.
He came over to county cricket, didn't he?
Yeah, he played for Kent, I think. And apparently his numbers are a little bit misleading because they played on some really flat decks while he was out here, which can happen. It tends to be one way or the other in county cricket. I'd definitely bring him as well. Mohammad Siraj, he actually bowled reasonably well. He bowled to an acceptable standard in Australia, and he remains a very good strike bowler. I just think that what we were missing was another more containing bowler, so that he could be saved. I think he got a bit tired towards the end.
The thing with Siraj, he can look quite innocuous for two spells, but then all of a sudden he can come on and take 3 for 11, can't he? In next to no time, and the match changed, and that's what you need sometimes. Don't you? Somebody that can turn the match in your favour from nowhere.
There was a Jared Kimber made a comparison to Stuart Broad in that he can, properly streaky, and I mean that he'll just get on a hot streak and be unplayable. He said that the one difference was that Stuart Broad was able to tell when he wasn't at his best, and then just managed to bowl at a 6 or a 7 and keep it at that level, whereas Siraj will still try to bowl at a 9 and end up bowling at a 4.
I think that's where the Stuart Broad and Jimmy Anderson helping each other out came in, because they've talked a lot since Broad retired about how they stood at mid-off to each other and gave each other advice, almost coaching from mid-off, because they knew each other's actions and knew each other's capabilities so well. They're able to probably identify, well, you're not quite on it today, so let's go for this instead. Whereas Siraj maybe hasn't quite got that. Very quickly, I don't want to go through the Ashes because the Ashes is miles away, and we talked far too much about the Ashes, and it isn't the be-all and end-all. There are plenty of very, very good Test matches to come before the Ashes are even anywhere near us, and Zimbabwe is one of those. I'm looking forward to the 4 days against Zim. But just to answer that question before we finish, next 12 months, it is going to be, I think, the litmus test for BazBall and for Brendan McCullum, and we've seen so many people get dropped or lose their job as head coach after the Ashes, down under particularly, because England have got, apart from the odd exception, got a very dreadful record down in Australia. If we scroll forward 12 months, Anand, where do you think England will be after the series that we've talked about?
I think it's all dependent on the pitches that Australia rolls out, right? For India, it was a bunch of green pitches. Matter of fact, Nathan Lyon, who's the all-time GOAT finger spinner in Australia, hardly bowled in the Test series. India was rocking up with Ashwin and Sundar and Jadeja, and I think none of them bowled too much except for Ashwin, I think, in that red ball test. So if you're going to get green seamers, I think England definitely has a chance. If it's a flat deck where you need bowlers who can pitch the ball into who can really ram the pitch in, bowler 135 140 and get good bounce out of it, then apart from Cars, who do you have?
Will McCullum still be in a job in 12 months time, Neil? Because he's taken on the white ball job as well, and the white ball team's far from being what it used to be too. So if he's going to be judged on both jobs, he's got 2 reasons to sack him now, hasn't he?
I don't know if he I don't know if he's going to carry on with the Red Bull stuff. And to be honest, I'm surprised they gave him the. Well, I'm not surprised because key ECB cronyism. But I don't know if he makes it through the out the T20 World Cup with any job left.
I've got a theory with McCullum that he might go before they push him. I don't think he's the sort of person that would hang around. I don't think he would be. He's the sort of person that will outstay his welcome. Put it that way.
Well, let me ask the question: if England wins the Ashes, does McCullum get knighted?
Well, I mean, that's the flip side, isn't it? Because I mean, I'm looking at it from. I think we're going to really struggle for 12 months. I think England will struggle against India this summer. It might not be catastrophic, but it'll be. I think it's going to be a close series. And I think England will get, as has been the case recently, will get stuffed in Australia. And off the back of that, there will be the usual 4-yearly, what on earth is wrong with English cricket kind of chat going on in the press and going on in all the our podcasts and what have you. And people will pay the price for that. And so that's where I think it's going to go. But obviously, if we go down the other route and England smash Zimbabwe, beat India 4-0, and then go down to Australia and come back with the urn, then everything is going to be marvellous, isn't it?
There is a chance if Australia provides a green pitch and does the same that they did to India, England's actually better suited to take advantage of that than India was.
I'll tell you what, I hope that Sam Cook has a good summer, because I think England they have become kind of one-trick ponies when they've talked about the Ashes. Every chat they have about the pace bowling attack, we need fast bowlers, we need bowlers that are kind of 8 foot tall who bowl at 150 miles an hour. They're the ones that are going to win us the Ashes. Josh Tong's a great bowler. Mark Wood's a fantastic bowler. There's, in that kind of, Josh Hull being jettisoned in was a perfect example of we need to have a left armer that can bowl like Mitchell Starc. Well, that's tough because Mitchell Starc's pretty damn good. But I think there needs to be a balanced attack, and having somebody like a Sam Cook or a Matthew Potts or somebody of that ilk in that lineup is going to be handy for England. I think you only have to look at Scott Boland. He's not rapid. He takes wickets for Australia in Australia. A good bowler finds a way.
Isn't Potts similar to Boland in that way? If you get the same sort of pitches, Potts sort of similar to Boland, right? Keeps the ball there and there about good length, seams the ball in and out. That's exactly what Boland did. I think Boland got wickets for what, like 3 and over, 3 runs. What is the average? Something like that. Boland was just running through India.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, there is certainly a place for somebody that bowls like Mark Wood, because every batter has to hurry when Mark Wood's bowling at his best. But you don't. All 4 seamers don't have to be like Mark Wood. You need a little bit of variety. I mean, that is why they were looking at Josh Hull, but I don't think he's quite ready yet. So we will see. And Virani and Anand, who was being tipped by a few people a while ago as being England's spinner in Australia because he's a leggy, and Shane Warne and all the rest of it. He's not even bowling for Leicestershire. He came on and bowled 1 over and got 1 wicket, and that's the only time I've seen his name in the bowling analysis for Leicestershire. So if you can't get overs for Leicestershire, with all due respect, then he's not an England bowler, is he, at the moment, Virani Ahmed? So
but he's number 3 now. He's gunning for Ollie Pope's place.
I mean, he's got a chance. I mean, it's going to be interesting. I mean, the next 12 months, I think, is going to be really interesting as far as England are concerned. It could go Anand's way, and it could be glory. It could go horribly wrong. We will see over the 12 months and the next 12 months, and we will talk about it ad infinitum, I am sure, on the Cricket Badger podcast. Thank you to my Fan Badgers. Thank you to Mark for trying, despite the fact that his technology failed him. Anand, good to see you again. It's been a while. We will see you a lot, I'm sure, as we go through this Indian summer that England have got coming up. And same to you, Neil. Good to see you again, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Cheers, James. Looking forward to Test summer starting.
And we will be back with, this is episode 599 of the Cricket Badger podcast. And there is a 600th episode being recorded on Monday. So I will bring that to you next week. So it's a milestone, long time doing these podcasts. And I was thinking earlier on today what a great move it was on my part to advertise for Fan Badgers. And when bored in lockdown or whenever it was and thinking about, let's do a daily IPL, let's get some fan badges on. We got Anand, we got Neil, we got all sorts of fan badges that came on and have been great for the podcast over the last few years. And long may that continue. So more fan badges, more everything as we go through the next 100 or whatever episodes of the Cricket Badger podcast. The 600th edition will be with you soon. Thanks to Seatfrog for their sponsorship of the Cricket Badger podcast. And we'll see you again very soon indeed. Take care, everybody. Enjoy the tests and see you soon.